Welcome back as I answer your questions on ancient Egypt and the Bible. Today's question involves gold. It's beautiful, it's rare, and the Egyptians were obsessed with it. So today's question is, why were the Egyptians obsessed with gold? Well, the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with gold for much the same reason as everybody else is. It's rare, it's valuable, it's beautiful. It's a non-corroding metal. It doesn't tarnish. It's malleable. It's easy to work with. It's just a gorgeous, supple metal. Now, many societies use gold as currency, and Egypt was different in this regard. Egypt didn't have money. It was an entirely barter economy. Yet even so, there wasn't much trade in gold. Most of the gold was controlled by the nobility. And very little of the gold in Egypt is actually from Egypt itself. Most of the gold mines in Egypt were either in the occupied territories of Kush, or the gold was imported from trade with the neighboring country of Punt. Now, we see in the Temple of Hatshepsut the trading mission that Queen Hatshepsut had sponsored to take bronze tools that the Egyptians had made and trade them with the people of Punt for myrrh, incense trees, and rings of gold. This gold, and most of the gold in Egypt, was brought in from outside. Now, unlike, say, the Assyrians and the Babylonians that paid their soldiers in gold and silver and precious metals, gold in Egypt sort of served a different function, and was important for a different reason. It was used to express the incorruptibility of divinity. Sure, it was sometimes given to nobles and important retainers as a reward. For example, we see that gold flies were made as sort of badges of reward to important retainers. It was also used in chains that were given as a badge of honor, sort of like the Congressional Medal of Honor. Like the highest award of the land was the chain of gold. But its funerary properties it's the mystique that it had around, say, funerary culture is what made the Egyptians absolutely obsessed with it. Now, to outline why it was important, we have to go to Egyptian mythology. Egyptians believed that the flesh of the gods was made of gold. When we look at, say, the tale of the shipwrecked sailor, the sailor on the island meets this serpent god that towers over him. That god has eyes of lapis and a skin of gold. Gold was believed to be the flesh and the skin of the gods. Now, we come then to, say, burial customs in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, it was believed when a person died, his body and soul were subject to the forces of decay. And this goes without saying that when a body dies, the corpse starts decaying almost immediately. And it was believed that demons would take bites out of the dead person and the soul and feed on the decomposition that would come from the body decaying. So the Egyptians were really anxious to stop this process of decay, which is why they used mummification. They mummified the body to preserve the home of the soul, so that the soul would have a place to come back to every night. Now, there's also a sort of a mythological aspect to this too, that the soul in the body remains vulnerable as long as there's the possibility of decay. But at some point, when the soul becomes united with the god Osiris, the god Osiris gives his properties to the soul. So it was believed that the soul would undergo this process of apotheosis, where the soul would take on a new body, which would have bones of iron and flesh of gold, just like the gods. At that point, that body and soul became impervious to decay and attack by the demons. So what the Egyptians did was they would apply gold to the funerary furniture as a ritual means to accelerate that process of apotheosis. In the case of King Tut, he was buried in 4 coffins covered in gold, with the innermost coffin almost solid gold. And his head mask, his face mask, was gold and decorated with lapis and glass and precious stones. Again, imitating the materials that the gods were believed to be made of. Later in the 21st dynasty, we even find some mummies whose bodies were covered in gold leafing, again accelerating that process and ritual of apotheosis, becoming godlike. So, for the Egyptians, gold was a big, big deal, but not because it was money, but because it provided safety in the afterlife. Thank you for asking that question. I hope you enjoyed this video as I answer your questions on ancient Egypt and the Bible.